Hello guys, what is up? And today I'm going to be talking about how useful non-line of sight shooting is. Okay, so what exactly is non-line of sight shooting? So non-line of sight shooting is where a model can shoot at a target that isn't visible to it. So normally in 40k you'd need to draw a line of sight from your firing model unless stated otherwise. And there are some examples in Warhammer 40k of models that don't require line of sight to shoot at their target. Being able to shoot at enemies that you can't see is particularly useful for a number of reasons. One of these reasons can be if a unit is holding an objective and hiding out of the way, such as in a ruins, where in ITC format events you cannot see through ground floor ruins. So this makes it particularly easy for units such as guardsmen or grots to hide in the ground floor of a ruin on an objective or within range of an objective, and just camp there and keep getting score for your opponent. So being able to shoot at those targets without being able to see them is particularly useful of obviously clearing them off that objective and then denying your opponent's points. But also, non-line of sight shooting can be important in removing screens. So if you have a mixed army where part of your army wants to move up the board and assault key targets, but people generally tend to screen weaker units in front, such as guardsmen in front of tanks, having non-line of sight shooting models in your army can mean that the models you're firing can hide out of the way of the tanks, and then also clear the guardsman screens in front, allowing other models in your army to get into combat with said tanks without having to chew through chaff first. Additionally, non-line of sight shooting can also be used to remove your opponent's non-line of sight shooting. So say you're in a mirror match, playing Imperial Guard, and you both have basilisks. If you go first, you can obviously use your basilisks to clear their basilisks. That would then prevent them from shooting their basilisks at your army, or their basilisks obviously at your basilisks, removing your ability to use your basilisks. That was a bit of a mouthful. So because people will tend to hide their non-line of sight shooting units out of the way, say behind a big piece of ruin or a big rock or something where you can't see it and shoot it, it would be useful to then remove that with your non-line of sight shooting, so you don't have to go through the effort of reorientating and then being able to see it at different angles, which can then risk you being out of position, and then obviously the unit you've positioned to kill the basilisks will therefore be out of position and then fail to score you as much points from objectives as they would have done, or they will just be flat out killed because they're not either in cover or near other units that can provide durability benefits. So generally, non-line of sight shooting can be categorised into two categories. So this can be either anti-infantry non-line of sight shooting or anti-tank non-line of sight shooting. So anti-infantry non-line of sight shooting is usually high volume of shots with a low AP and low damage, which is perfect at clearing out screens or hordes. Whereas on the reverse, anti-tank non-line of sight shooting is generally low volume of shots, high strength, high damage, and high AP, which is perfect at clearing either vehicles, monsters, or more elite infantry such as Primaris Marines. Some examples of non-line of sight shooting in Warhammer 40k are Wyverns and heavy weapons teams, which are anti-infantry, and Basilisks, which are anti-tank, and they are available to the Imperial Guard. Plague Burst Crawlers, which are generally anti-tank for the Death Guard. Thunderfire Cannons and Whirlwinds, which are for the Space Marines, where Thunderfires are generally anti-infantry and Whirlwinds are kind of a bit of both. And also Dark Reapers, which are anti-infantry for the Craftworld Eldar. There is also the Hive Guard for the Tyranids, which is actually quite reliable non-line of sight shooting. So it is flat 2 damage, which limits your damage output because you can't roll a 3 on a D3, but then you can also don't have the opportunity to roll a 1. And in my rolling is to go off by, I'll roll a lot more 1s than I will 3s. I use a mix of non-line of sight shooting in my Imperial Guard army. So I tend to use heavy weapons teams at the moment, but I'm looking at getting a Wyvern in the future. And the heavy weapon teams with the mortars are pretty useful at either reducing the amount of enemy models on an objective, which will then make it quite easy for my guardsmen to move up and outnumber or finish off the unit on that objective and then score me points, but also at removing models from enemy objectives, which are quite hard to get to, because guardsmen are pretty quick but they aren't very durable. So sometimes objectives can be quite out of reach or quite hard to actually score from, so being able to prevent your opponent scoring them is just as good as you scoring them, really, and that can be important in winning the game. Heavy weapon teams mortars are also pretty useful at reducing the amount of models coming towards you. So in combat focused armies, especially combat horde armies such as the Tyranids, they'll use like up to 90 Gene Stealers or even more. Being able to reduce the amount of models in those units will then greatly reduce the amount of attacks incoming, and also by removing the units, there's one less unit to worry about. So mortar teams are pretty useful at getting rid of Gene Stealers because I've only got a toughness 4 and a 5 up save, and then only one of them can have a 5 up feel no pain from the psychic power. And also by removing the models from the combat units, it greatly reduces the chance of your opponent wrapping and trapping your screens in front of you and then just chewing through your screen units and then getting to your tanks. I also use the anti-tank non-line of sight shooting in the form of basilisks, and basilisks are pretty useful at killing elite infantry units such as Primaris Marines or even Tyranid Hive Guard, which can also shoot at targets they can't see. So being able to remove them will then stop them destroying my tank commanders or even my basilisks. Additionally, basilisks are useful at getting rid of the last few wounds on bigger targets. So if my tank commander's almost killed something such as a Tyrannofex or a Carnifex or the Swarm Lord, a basilisk can then be used to remove the last few wounds or half the wounds, etc. And that means I don't have to designate another tank commander's worth of shooting into the same target. I hope this video has inspired you to add another element of firepower into your 40k army, and I hope it's helped you remove pesky units that are hiding and holding objectives while scoring your opponent loads of points. If you do like this content, then please do like, comment and subscribe.